Welcome to the Pen to Publish podcast from the two Alexas. If you're planning to pen and publish or are penning at the moment, then you're definitely in the right place. We talk all about the writing and publishing process, and we know this podcast is helping hundreds of writers all over the globe. I'm Alexa Whitten, author, typesetter, and independent publisher. And
I'm Alexa Tewkesbury, author, editor, and proofreader. We have many writing resources for you, including our brand new Pen to Published website, where you can get all the show notes and guest information. We've interviewed some really interesting writers and authors, and there's also our Writers Refinery Facebook group, which is available for you to join. We love getting feedback, so do please leave us a review, and don't forget to hit subscribe so that all the latest episodes pop up in your podcast feed. So let's get started.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Pen to Publish podcast. And today we have the lovely author, Paula Fowler, who has written 2 books about Wizard Beano and pals. And Paula's going to explain the inspiration behind the story. I'm going to say the stories are magical, whimsical, they are wonderful, and they've been illustrated by our lovely Kylie Dixon, who has illustrated quite a few of our children's books. So anyway, I'm going to just quickly read out a little bio about Paula, and then we're going to introduce you. And Paula, we would love to hear more about your inspiration, why you've come to write these books, and your digital legacy that you're leaving for future generations of your family, and how you went about that, and also some tips about how to get in touch with the press and radio about your book, because it's important that you let people know about what you've accomplished. So Paula Fowler lives in East Bolden in the northeast of England. After working in the world of banking and travel, her career was cut short by stage 4 cancer diagnosis. Not wanting to let that define her, Paula has continued to use all her skills, experiences, and creativity to help and support others. The latter part of 2021 brought Paula and author-artist Kylie Dixon together again. After meeting at work, Paula asked Kylie to work on a commission piece for the family's new addition, a great-grandchild. It was through this commission that Paula realised she had to share the story of Wizard Beano, a character told in a bedtime tale within the Fowler household. The ideas that have been locked away came to life. With new stories and fresh characters, Wizard Beano was reborn. So you've written 2 books. So we've got Wizard Beano and Pals, and then we've got this latest book, Wizard Beano and Pals Show How They Care for the Planet. So Paula, welcome to the show.
Hello, Paula.
Thank you.
I don't think, Alexa, you've met Paula virtually, have you?
I have not. I feel as though most people in my life these days, I only ever meet virtually. But Paula, we hadn't even got that far.
No. But I feel as if I know you personally. I mean, yes. I feel, the relationships the relationships that have been built over the last few years have been unbelievable. So yeah, I feel as if I know you anyway.
Yes.
So Paula, let's kick off with how Wizard Beano came about. So I remember the commission that you asked Kylie to do.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how you met Kylie through your work, and then how the commission came about, and then how the book came about.
Okay, so Kylie and I worked for Barclays Bank, and it was quite a big call centre environment. So our paths would cross. We would work together sometimes, but we always knew of each other. And I knew that Kylie was very creative. She used to get involved in all of the performances and the reward and recognition events. And I used to end up doing the boring bits, the logistics, and she used to do all the great dancing and, dancing about. So we always saw each other in some way, shape or form. So obviously fast forward 2021, I knew she'd already created a picture for me, one of her beautiful pieces of art, and I'm just looking at it now, and it's got lots of, to some people it'll be just splodges of paint. To me, I can see fairies and goblins and everything doing cartwheels across the sheet. So she did some artwork for me, and then I asked her if she would paint a picture, because we were due to have a great grandchild in the family. So Wizard Beano was created 60 plus years ago by my father-in-law, who used to tell stories to his children and subsequently the grandchildren. And I've known the family now. I've been married to his son for 20 plus years. So Wizard Beano was very, very quickly part of my life. So I asked Kylie to paint and incorporate lots of different elements. So the picture, I asked Joe, that's Jeff's dad, I said, describe in your head what Wizard Beano looks like. So I can remember a phone call that was really funny. And I said, what colour is Wizard Beano's jacket? Because he'd drawn me a pencil drawing. He was shopping at the time. I think he was in Aldi, and he'd just been walking past the gravy granules, and he said, Bistro gravy. He says the colour is the same as his jacket is Bistro gravy colour. So obviously we ended up having these funny discussions. But the description of the characters, we also the coloured rainbow in the picture was very much, for those who were old enough to remember C&A, the shop, obviously, their branding was very much rainbow colours. And Jeff's mum used to work in C&A. So in this picture, we incorporated local places, and we also incorporated things that were personal to the family. So again, fast forward, once I looked at this picture, I realised that my creativity started to whir around in my head. And I thought, we need to give Wizard Beano some more credibility. And with Jeff's dad being 85 at the time, I thought it would be lovely to have a book. And it was only going to be for the family, few books, but actually in print and pulling together some of the stories he told the children. So again, I just, I did some research. I spoke to family members and I asked what they remembered of the story. So I wrote quite a few and then validated them with Joseph, with Jeff's dad, and made sure that they were as close as I could to some of the stories that he remembered. So again, it was a collaboration. Some of the characters had already been written down for a birthday for one of Alex, that's my niece, and she'd created a story that a swimming pool had been changed into jelly by a Diablo, a wizard. So again, what I did was I tried to incorporate some of the things that had already been discussed and read to or imagined by the family. So that started me on the journey, and I just started writing stories, and I didn't realize, but naturally writing stories which take about 10 minutes to read, and each chapter is a short story, ideal for bedtime. So without actually having any rhyme or reason, I've managed to have this theme going through without even sort of planning it. So when I first put together the initial The Wizard Beano and Pals book, I thought, yeah, ideal. The characters, the structure, it was ideal for a book that could be used at bedtime. And then it took off from there.
I mean, it's amazing how a commissioned piece for the family, and obviously knowing that stories were told by your father-in-law, that it could be morphed into what is now a series of books, which I know there's going to be a third. Yeah. And Wizard Beano and Pals is like a brand now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for those who know me, I'm one of these people, it's either go big or go home. I think that if you're going to do something, either, for me, it was either, give it my all and really sort of have a theme and launch it properly, or, don't bother. So what that ended up being is with the Northern Lass Lounge, I was involved with Kylie. I'd met lots of great girls and great people, and obviously Kylie introduced me to the Writers' Refinery, so I met both you and Alexa, and it meant that I felt as if I had a team again.
Yeah.
So, and that was really, so for someone who, had been used to working with large groups of people and leading and collaborating with a lot of people with different skills and experience, I think that's what I missed. So it gave me the opportunity. It wasn't just writing a book and launching. I felt as if I was launching a brand, and it all linked into all of the things I was familiar with through work.
That's great that you talk about it as like being a team, because I think that's the whole publishing process, isn't it? It's like, because working with an editor, I always like to feel that I'm not just blanket saying, no, this is how it's going to be. And so when I email an author back with an edit, I'll say, you'll see the suggested changes, but they are suggestions. So it's up to the author to sort of come back and say whether or not they want to go with those changes. And sometimes people do want to make amendments to things that I've suggested. And then obviously there's the kind of the linchpin is Alexa Whitten with you're almost like the project manager as well, aren't you, Alexa? Because you coordinate, and on the projects that we work together, you coordinate, and it's just nice that you as the author feel that there's a kind of a grounding for what you're doing, and it's a collaboration.
Definitely.
I found that it was, for me, it was really important for me, obviously, the reason I'm now writing and involved with the Northern Lass Lounge was due to me not being able to work in the way that I had done in the past. But what I found is, indirectly, I've managed to probably utilize at least 80% of the skills and experiences I've had. And you're right, I never ever underestimate people with much more stronger skills. For example, English was never ever a strong topic for me at school. I was more maths and science and music. But what I found was, that's what I'm telling when I'm meeting children and meeting young adults and doing the little workshops that I do. I'm encouraging them that, writing and spelling and grammar is important, but it's not the be all and end all. You can use other people's skills to refine that part. So if you can let your imagination run, it shouldn't stop you from writing a book or telling a story. You can use other people's skills to pull it all together, and I think that's really important.
How important was it for you to, once you got inspiration for these stories, obviously, and with your cancer diagnosis, how important is it then for you to leave this legacy behind that you've now created?
I think it's important. It was something that I could really feel proud of, but also it meant that I was doing something for the family as well. Jeff's dad, Joe Fowler, the reason I'm writing a trilogy is I've spoken to him at length, and we've had lots of little meetings, and he's passionate about just people, and we've got a lot of synergy. We've got lots of common ground. He's kind and he'll do anything for anyone. And again, I try to be as much as I can. I try to be kind and thoughtful, and we've got a lot of common things there. The second book about looking after the planet, I think anyone that has lived through what he has, being 87, he's got a lot of life experience, and he'll always encourage people to look after look after the outside world, make do and mend, not throw things away. So again, he's quite passionate about not having a throwaway society, and he instills that on the family. And then the last story is all about, we've all had quite a bit of not so nice news. We've Jeff's mum sadly died of cancer, and we've had lots of things happen in the family, like my dad and then me. So really what he again is, he's very passionate, like I am, about encouraging people to go outside, walk, breathe the air, and look after their own well-being as much as we can, eat healthily, or really sort of take advantage of things that can be relatively low cost, but can bring family together. And we've got very similar families, Jeff and I. We love sitting around a table and having food. We love a family get together, a family walk. We love sort of helping each other in different ways. So again, the 3 themes of the book all helped me write down in a way that was familiar to all of the family what Jeff's dad stood by and stood for. So I think that was lovely as well. It wasn't just me. It wasn't all about me. I was sort of helping him celebrate what everybody loved about him as well.
And how has the book projects helped you also with your diagnosis? As in, has it given you a purpose? I would imagine it has.
Yeah, very much so. I think what's kept me going and kept me sort of focused is I try and make sure I put at least 1 or 2 things in the calendar every day. And for someone who's worked all her life, having something in the calendar and having that structure, it has meant that I'm not just a cancer patient. I'm not, I haven't just got hospital appointments to look forward to. This has given me something to focus my energy. And with all of the extra bit, the branding, the merchandise, it's got my mum has crocheted all the characters for me. So I've got, I'll say, right, this is what this character looks like. And then 2 days later, I've got a Harriet the Heron, or sort of a something to for me to look at as well as write stories about. So we've sort of lots of parts of the family and friends have been involved in the process. So the likes of yourself and both Alexas and Kylie, you're all involved in using your specialities and expertise in different ways. But I just try and include people, photographers. I've got a few friends that are photographers, so I take pictures of where the stories are set. I go and explore. I'll take people on little walks and say, I'm looking for where Herbert lives, or so what it's meant that not only have I got sort of a structure, I've used Wizard Beano to help me sort of do other things as well.
With your characters, I love the characters. They're all quite quirky and they just all kind of blend really well together. But there's one character, Charlie. They are non-gender specific, and I just wonder, when you're talking about, you want to include everybody. I'm really passionate about inclusivity from the point of view of disability because my son is disabled. I wonder, where is that why you chose to have, because Charlie is always they, it's never he, she, always they. Is that why you wanted to do that? Was that to include that section of the population that don't want to be known in a gender specified way?
Intentionally, no, but indirectly I've ended up including people, and there's been a few people I've met that have said specifically, I'm really pleased that you've written a character that is non-specific. I think it's sort of, as I've grown up, there's always been situations where, for example, my mum's from a big family, and one of her brothers used to love trying on the lovely pleated skirts that were like a kilt, and
Right.
and he used to get very upset, and we're talking about 50 years ago now, so we're talking a long time ago, got very upset that he couldn't go to school in the lovely kilt and had to wear shorts or trousers. So, there was sort of these examples that came out. And as I've sort of, I don't know, as I've just been more aware, I just thought it would be nice for a child to, or an adult, to read a book and decide for themselves what that character meant to them.
And see themselves reflected as well.
Absolutely.
I think that's where a lot of, I mean, I suppose it's just that as the years have gone by, we've become more aware of things and more accepting of things. Maybe that's why things are now starting to kind of be a part of art more. But I think it's so important, for disabled people, for people of different genders and different identities, to see themselves reflected.
I mean, there is a little bit of a backstory, and it's something sort of that I observed in the family, and it was sad but relevant. And so Charlie has become a character in their own right because I've observed people being judgmental. So yes. So really what it's enabled me to do, and I got advice from a lot of people, and I've asked for it, but I said, what all the characters I've written about, in my head, I've known the quirkiness, or there's a backstory in my head, but just because I think like that shouldn't mean that the reader should read the story. The characters will mean lots of different things to different people. I mean, I was asked a question about, and just said, did you have sort of pride in mind, or I don't know how many letters, the LBGDQ, what, obviously it's a huge inclusivity now, but I said, no, I said, I haven't written, I said, characters with a specific thing in mind. I said, it's just what it's done. It's the characters in my imagination has allowed me to create, for example, Rain and Bo. Their ears and tail changed, not because there was any sort of sexual change that they had. It was because they got, they were dyed by the colours through the rainbow. Now, the fact that the Rain and Bo are both little boys and end up adopting a family, a reader can choose to to have that as normal, or maybe that's a little bit different to their family structure. But that's not for me to decide. They can decide as a reader. And Foxy, God, I mean, in my head, Foxy is very complex. But for the reader, Foxy may just like to go into Grandad's shed and, work alone, but on occasion like to go and find and spend time with family. But in my head, there is lots of different quirks for Foxy as well. So I think, I didn't realize that it would be that it could be a big thing. I've had,
I think it's quite nice actually that it's really subtle.
Yeah,
it's not a big thing, because it shouldn't be.
No. That's not what it's about, but it's there. It's just there.
It's just there. Yeah, it's lovely.
But I've enjoyed though the fact that it's instilled lots of different conversations. And a lady came up to me and said that her daughter was very confused about her own identity, and it was lovely to read a story that was quite subtly saying that it didn't matter whether Charlie was dressed as a boy or a girl, or was a girl or a boy in their heads, or just Charlie. And I said Charlie could, I says Charlie, because that's what I'll say, is Charlie a girl or a boy? Yeah. And a little girl, she must have only been about 3 or 4, and I went in and did a workshop, and she said, how does Charlie go to the toilet? And that was quite interesting. And I said, well, Charlie goes to the toilet like everybody else. And I just left it hanging. And she just looked at me and she said, okay, walked away. And and I thought, that my interpretation is not really to burden them. They can decide what they want to do and sort of have their own imagination. And that's what I've encouraged as well. I've loved getting out and about to sessions and workshops, and at the weekend I was in the local museum.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more about how that's, because I think that's something that listeners will really find interesting. Because you are brilliant at networking. And when you say that you are a kind person, Paula, I think you're underestimating the fact that Paula is probably one of the most supportive, generous-hearted people that I know. You champion so many people. All the people that you work with, you champion them. I've been privileged to come to one of your book launches, and the inclusivity and the way that you champion people, it wasn't just about you. It was about everyone who came to the book launch. I mean, it was quite a sight to see with how many books you sold, how much merch you sold. So tell us a little bit about how you've really leveraged not only talking to press, but talking to people. I mean, you have the gift of the gab without a shadow of a doubt. You can sell coal to miners easily. What is the what if an author is listening who has a book that is of a good quality book, what would you say is the next step in terms of, you've made opportunities out of every opportunity you're given, you make opportunities. What are your tips for getting into the press, getting into local radio, doing your talks, getting into museums, etc.? Give us some insight in how that works.
Okay, well, I think you should peel it all back, and you need to understand it's about everything, but if it's a book that you've written, you need to understand why you've done it in the first place and what you want to achieve from that piece of work. And I think that then gives you an idea of how you then take it forward, because there'll be plenty of people that are out there that have written a book and have written it for them, to get their thoughts on paper, and they're not thinking about it commercially. They're not thinking about sort of sharing it. They've done it because it's been maybe therapy for them, or, as soon as I put pen to paper, I wanted to celebrate the character that was invented by my father-in-law, because I thought that was my why. He was such a really good, a really lovely guy, lovely father-in-law to me, lovely dad. And everybody he spent time with, I thought, something, people need to know that along with being a lovely dad, father, husband, brother, he was also just a lovely person. And the fact that he had the creativity and the knowledge and to tell his children stories that they really wanted to find out about every evening, I thought, that needs to be celebrated, because there's lots of people that will probably do that every day and nobody knows about it. So I thought, it's my opportunity. But for me, I thought, something, I am quite good at things, and I am good at getting things out. I'm good at bringing people with lots of skills together. I was once described as a conductor for an orchestra. I don't necessarily play all the instruments, but I do find the ones that play and bring them together. So with that said, I knew my why. I knew why I wanted to get it out there. So I thought, I had a bit of a plan, and I said, right, one, I need the artwork to represent the characters. I need it to be, so obviously Kylie got involved. Your skills, both you and Alexa, were amazing at sort of making that book sort of pop. So that was and then when I had the book in my hand, I thought, right, well, I need to share it. It's no good me sort of, so I set myself goals. And this is where, when people say, Polly, you're not a natural, you're not don't look as if you're a natural salesperson. I know that if I want to get things out there, I can. And I watch my mum do it, and that's how I thought I needed to set myself a goal. I needed to find out where my customers were, and I needed to have a bit of a plan. So that, again, using my skills, and this is where I can help people. I can absolutely sit down and say, okay, so what is it you're wanting to achieve? How many books, how many, do you want to get out there? And then you set yourself a little goal and find out where these customers are. What I will say is you need to be committed, and you need to work hard at it. It doesn't come that it's not people are not going to buy your book unless you spend the time to tell people about it. And you've then got to use lots of different ways of communication in order to do that. So if you think that you can write a book and then just people will buy it, it doesn't happen like that. So you've got to have step by step. So I try to make it local. I thought if I make the characters local and I give other things as part of the package of the book, so that's why I've encouraged, I've put the little maps in there. I've said that it's not just a book to read. You can read the story and then go and visit the places if you're local. But I've even said, even if you live away, we've got Google, you can find out about history. So I've made Wizard Beano more than a story. I've made it an adventure. I've made it, some people struggle with finding things to do that don't cost very much. So I've gave parents or grandparents a sort of a vehicle to be able to take their kids to go to places, to go and visit things, to ask questions. So I think it's sort of that journey. And then obviously, because I've created that, you then have to communicate that. And I've said, what's the worst that can ever happen to people? You ask a question, or you ask someone to promote something for you. The worst that can happen is they can say no. But often, and very often, they say yes. So you've just got to be brave to be able to ask to be in places that will help you promote, your book or whatever you're wanting to. And I think really, to find out what, I'm lucky because I've had lots of training over the years. I'm 50, I keep forgetting how old I am, but I'm 54. So in my career, I've had training with presentations. I understand reading body language. I can plan sort of a little bit of a structure to get you from A to B. So what I've tried to do is, I'll not only do that for myself, but I try and bring people along the way. And that helps me because it gives me something back, and then it helps me focus on them or myself instead of, again, a diagnosis where it looks grim. So I know that's very wordy, but I think a lot of hard work in a nutshell.
I think as well that emphasis on place, because the place, the Northeast,
yeah,
where you live and it so well. I think I like the way that is such an integral part of the stories. And when you mention Google, obviously you're right up in the Northeast, I'm way down in the Southwest. And as I was editing, I was Googling the places so that I could get the feel of what they look like. And like you say, the history behind them, the bridges and the things that you talk about. And I can imagine that people who don't know the Northeast will do that when they read your stories. They've got Kylie's illustrations, and they'll think, I think it's just natural to think, oh, I want to see that, and check the photographs online. And yeah, I mean, it definitely did that for me as the editor.
Yeah, and that's lovely, and that, because again, it's all about learning something new, and we're never too old to learn about things. And by writing the stories and putting myself in the children's shoes and sort of walking through the little journeys I'm taking the characters, it's helped me understand and help me get to find out things I never ever knew existed. So indirectly being ill, I know that I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but it has given me an opportunity to find out about things that I would never ever have given myself time to do. So, that's a lovely part of something that's quite, that's not so great in the great scheme of things.
That's such a positive mindset you've created for yourself, and as I'm sure I've read somewhere, maybe Alexa read it out, but where you say you didn't want your illness to define you, and your illness hasn't defined you. Your illness has created a launch pad in a sense for you to go off and be creative yourself.
You never know what you've got inside your head or your heart until you try, until you start exploring. I mean, I never ever thought I would enjoy going into schools and children's workshops. That would never, I had 2 children of my own, but I definitely wanted to get back to work. But what it's done is I'm seeing the children that I work with, and all the horrible things that happen in the world. I look at their faces, and it never ever ceases to amaze me how forward thinking the children are. Little things about looking after the planet and being kind. They give me so many ideas and possibilities and positivity about sort of the future. And that, again, it's been lovely to be able to say, well, when people have said, oh, kids have struggled through COVID and everybody's, and yes, I don't doubt that, but the experiences I've had has been marvelous. And I think really we've got to sort of I've taken a lot of positivity in that. And when people say, oh no, the children have struggled, I'll say, well, I said, not in my opinion. I said, I've had lots of children that smiling, creative, can change the course of how climate change is affecting the world. I said, they're very considerate. I said, kids that one little chap said he didn't like reading, and within half an hour he wanted to buy the book, and was very, and to be honest, he can read, he just chose to tell me that he couldn't. But again, the positivity when you give kids and adults and young people the opportunity to talk to you, it's amazing. A little girl came up to me on Saturday and said that she'd written a story, and she's emailed me since and said, will you help me find out how I can get it printed? So, we're going to look at some. And she was just lovely. Her illustrations are gorgeous, and I think she was about 9 or 10. So there's lots of great things come out of sort of spending time with all the younger people. It's been great.
Oh, that's lovely. That is. Tell us a little bit more about this digital legacy, because we'll post a link in the notes about you. I remember you were, and forgive me not remembering, but you were on the local news, weren't you?
Yeah.
And local radio about your digital legacy that you're leaving behind. Yes. Tell us a little bit about that and how someone else could go about doing the same thing.
Yeah, well, it's what it was. It was just when you are faced with an untimely diagnosis that might mean that you're going to die a heck of a lot sooner than you thought. I think what it meant for me is just I had to sort of speed up or get things like all my ducks in a row. So what I started to do is I started to look at my banking technology and things that I'd done with work, and thought, we need to bring death up to date. If you want to ask questions of your relatives or your grandparents or whatever, don't put it off. Do it now. And if you want to then remember that, just say, can I take a little video? So use things that we've got available for to remember things. So it was like looking at memories, but in more of a digital way. So lots of things happened. I saw a lady on Dragon's Den, and she'd invented sort of a concept called biscuit tin, but made it a digital biscuit tin. And then I thought, well, actually, let's explore that more. So in a nutshell, anything that I would have wanted to save in paper format or photographs or pictures, I've tried to make sure that it's happened in a digital way. So I've started to do sort of videos and messages. When I've journaled, I've tried to make sure that the journal comments have been done in a way that I can save them in the cloud. And it means that it's much easier for people to get hold of information. And it gave me the opportunity to ask my children. My children were about 15 and 13 when I was diagnosed with cancer. And it was surprising how little they would spend looking at old stuff. Both my kids want to press a button and have it there. So I thought, I've got to be thinking about that as well. So in a nutshell, anybody can start sort of saving memories, and it doesn't have to be for a horrible reason. It could be just if you've had a baby, how great would it be to have a little folder and have little photographs and memories, so everything was collected for their 18th birthday, so everything was in the same place instead of on hard drives or in the loft. And it was just really just to make grieving easier. I wanted to leave things in a better place, so if I could do anything to make that grieving process easier, I could. So that was really my view on bringing death up to date.
Lovely. I mean, it's sad to have this happen sort of sooner than you would think, but what a great way of making your memories, as you said, accessible. Because I think our generation, we're straddling two ways of remembering things. My mum's got photo albums.
Yeah.
I'm of a generation where most of Oliver's life has been put on Facebook.
Yeah.
So at least he's got that, right?
Yeah.
In that respect. And Oliver, my son, has only known digital. He hasn't known photograph albums and all the rest of it. So for his birthday, I made a collage of physical photos because I'm like, damn it, I'm not letting him get away with not having physical photos. So I did a massive, I printed off loads of photos, which I got from, I'm going to admit it, which I got from Facebook and my computer, because that's where it all is stored. But I printed off all these photos and made a massive, great big collage from literally his scan photo from the hospital to when he was 18. And I think he kind of looked at it as if to say, oh my God, how retro is this that I've got actually printed photos. But I think it's really important that, especially our generation, where we're straddling these two ways of remembering our childhood, especially, to perhaps update it and put stuff online so that our children and our grandchildren can easily access our early life that wasn't on Facebook and wasn't in the cloud.
Yeah, we are sort of like that in-betweeny. However, what that then got me thinking about was, and again, I'll very briefly, I said, I want to be a hologram. I says, I want to be able to still attend. I don't know what I think I am, but still wanted to be able to attend events that I'd promised. So, for example, I'd said to a group of friends that when we're 70, we'll go to Benidorm and dance on the tables and drink cocktails. Now, the likelihood of me making it to 70 is negligible, but if I'm not here, I would still love, and my idea was they open a light box, here I am, I can have a cocktail, I'll say, I'm here. But then I thought, for my kids, I wanted to leave little messages for them that if I'm not going to be there, I don't know if my kids are going to have kids, but if they went through life and they did have children, I want to be just to have something there to say, this is something that I want to leave you a message or whatever. So my next adventure is to leave a poem that I used to sing to the kids when they were little. It's about a smelly skunk. And the kids used to think it was great and they still remember it. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice if I could be recorded singing this poem? And then if they happened to have children and I didn't meet my grandchildren, they could open the box and I would be able to, in a 3D format, be able to sing this song to the grandchildren. So what I've tried to do is I've tried to sort of be a little bit forward thinking as well. So I know it sounds really, to some people they'll go, oh, that's a bit too much. But for me, I just think if technology's there, why not embrace it and potentially use it? So that's my new thing, my next thing. And I've recorded all my books as well. So it's
I was just about to say, have you recorded all of your books?
All my two books I've recorded and I'm on YouTube and I've got QR codes. So some books the parents get an extra bonus. So I'll be able to read the story to the children instead of mum and dad doing it. So they get a few minutes off.
That's brilliant. That's wonderful. Thank you, Paula, so much for sharing some of your wonderful tips. So basically, be brave, talk to people, know your why. What's the worst that can happen? They'll say no. Go for it, basically. And also start thinking about perhaps leaving a digital legacy for, especially if you've written a book. Why not record yourself reading it out so that, grandchildren and great-grandchildren can then hear you reading it. Thank you, Paula, so much for joining us. It's been wonderful to talk to you. Alexa, do you have any other last questions before we sign off?
I don't think I do. I think that you've covered all the things that I written down. So no. It's just really lovely to talk to you. And I usually edit. I don't necessarily talk to the authors. I talk to them a lot, in emails and messages and things, but not actually in words. I don't have phone conversation things with authors. So it's really interesting talking to you. I'm wondering whether that is perhaps something that with some books it could be beneficial to do. Like I think it could be helpful to hear. Like there's so much that you've thought about in your books and why you wanted to do it and how you relate to the characters and what you see in them. That as an editor, maybe on probably not for every book, but for some books, it might be useful to talk to the author and just get their perspective firsthand.
Good.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry for the little background noise. I've got a little bark.
I was going to say, I wondered what that noise is.
Harry the cockapoo wanted the last word.
Well, he's very welcome.
He is very welcome. Thank you, Paula, very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
We will be putting the links, obviously, to Paula's books in the show notes. Paula, if people want to find your books, where do they go?
wizardbeano.com.
Also, what's the name of your Facebook group if people want to come and join your Facebook group?
Wizard Beano and Pals. Or if you want to walk along the beach with me, you can join me under Paula Fowler.
Wonderful. Perfect. So if you
fancying
some books that are, and it's interesting because when I went to the book launch, I remember seeing some of the landmarks that are from your book, and I'm like, that's and that's and it really does give a lovely sense of place, and it made me excited. I almost felt like I was like, that's the building that she was talking about, and that's the bridge she was talking about, and I'm, it does give you a sense of place, and I think these maps that you've created with some things for people to do the same, that Roundabout Rabbits have done the same, I think is a really good idea because it really gets you involved and immersed into the book. So anyway, thank you for joining us. Show notes, go and take a look. And from me, it's a goodbye.
And from me, goodbye. And thank you so much, Paula. It's been really lovely to chat to you.
Yeah, thank you very much.